All right, hello and welcome everybody to Ready, Set, Design, a webinar exploring how design and the design process can support students in art, social studies, and STEM. We are really excited to have you here with us for this session today. At the beginning of the hour, I just want to mention that while we're broadcasting live now, the session will also be archived. So if you need to leave early, or if you want to share this to with a friend, or maybe you just want to rewind and watch something again, you can access the archive again at the link that you're watching it at now, whether you're joining us on YouTube or Facebook. My name is Tess Porter, and I'm an educator and digital content producer in the Smithsonian Center for Learning and Digital Access, which is a central education office here at the Smithsonian. And we're the office behind the Smithsonian Learning Lab. I'm joined today by two fantastic educators from the Cooper Hewitt Smithsonian Design Museum, Alexa Griffith and Tiffany Luck. They'll reintroduce themselves in just a moment and talk a little bit more about what they do at the Cooper Hewitt. Today, they're going to also share some easy transferable activities to bring design into your learning environments, alongside some digital resources and field trips that can help support teaching and learning. This is going to be an interactive session, so if you have a question at any time, please share it with us. We will be answering questions throughout, and we're also going to save about 10 to 15 minutes at the end to have a larger in-depth Q&A. So feel free to share a question as soon as you have it, or you can hold on to it till the end. To share your questions with us, there are a couple different ways you can do it depending on the platform you're joining us on today. If you're joining us on YouTube, you can send questions at any time using the chat box to the right of the video on YouTube. And if you're joining us on Facebook, you can send questions using the comment box, which will appear below the video. To get us started off with today, as I just introduced all of us, I know we would also love to know who's joining us in the webinar today. So if you'd like to take a second with the chat or comment box and introduce yourself in the chat, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, what you're interested in, please feel free to do so. It would be really helpful to us. Today in the session, a lot of the resources we're going to be talking about exist on the Smithsonian Learning Lab, which some of you may already be familiar with. If you joined us through the newsletter or Twitter, the Learning Lab is located at the URL here on the screen, learninglab.si.edu. And I'd love to give a quick introduction to the site just to get everybody on the same page as we start our session today. So the Smithsonian Learning Lab, and I have it open in another tab here, is a free digital platform which is designed with teachers and students in mind, that it's available for anybody to use. You also don't need an account to access all of the learning opportunities on the site, which I'll talk more about in a moment. However, if you do create an account, that's when you can start creating some of your own content here. As I'm going to be demonstrating the lab today with Alexa and Tiffany, I'm actually not going to be logged in. So when you check out the site, you'll see the same thing that I see. So we designed the Learning Lab with three main ideas in mind. The Learning Lab is a site where you can discover digital museum resources from across the Smithsonian and beyond. So not just resources from the Cooper Hewitt, but all of the other museums and centers that make up the Smithsonian, like the National Museum of African American History and Culture, the Freer and Sackler Galleries, which are museums of Asian art. And these resources include many different things, as you'll see today. They include things like objects, artwork, and photographs that you typically find within a museum's gallery, but also include things like articles, blog posts, video and audio recordings, websites, and a whole lot more. These resources that you can discover on the site serve as the building block for what we call collections, which are interactive learning experiences. On the site, you can discover collections that others have created, or you can create your own. Anybody can create a collection, whether you're an educator, a parent, a student, or somebody who just really loves the Smithsonian. You can also share these discoveries and creations of yours with others. So I'd love to show an example of what a collection looks like, just to get you familiar with a little bit more of how the website works. This is actually a collection that Alexa and Tiffany are going to talk about later, so I won't dive too deeply into it now. But I just wanted to kind of show you how pages like this work. So this is a Learning Lab collection. Again, anybody can create one of these, and they'll all essentially look the same. Where I've got the title at the top, the author's name here, where I can click on kind of their name, go to their profile, see other things that they've created. I've got a description here that tells me what this collection is, this learning experience is and how it can be used. And then I see a series of images. Each one of these is a resource. Some of them are from the Smithsonian, some of them are from outside the Smithsonian and have been uploaded, and some of them are things that we created in building this collection and uploaded ourselves. For any of these resources, you can click on them to view them in greater detail, zoom in to see detail. And from those that are from the Smithsonian, if you click the I tab or the Information tab, here it opened automatically for me, I can learn a little bit more about what this resource is and how it can be used. I should say too that, if you find a collection in the lab and you think, hey, this is really awesome, but I would love to make some adaptations to use it with my own kind of learners, you can absolutely do that. When you create an account on the lab, you can not only create collections from scratch, but you can also copy and adapt existing ones to meet your needs. We won't have time to get into the how-to today, but I would love to point you to the Help Center. There's also a link for this in the description of the session today. We've got a lot of helpful links here. Highly recommend you check them out. The Help Center will walk you through kind of the basics of how to use the lab, how to search for resources, create collections, and more. So again, the URL is in the description. And then I've also, I just showed you how to do it. It's help at the bottom of every page. So with all of that said, I would love to turn it over to Alexa and Tiffany. Could you tell us a little bit more about yourselves and share the resources that you have brought to us today?
Thank you so much, Tess. I'm Alexa Griffith. I am Manager of Content and Curriculum at Cooper Hewitt, and Tiffany and I are on the team that is constantly looking to create new digital resources for educators and learners of all ages. And we're so excited to be here today to talk about some of the things that we have developed for teachers and caregivers and learners. And I do want to say that we love to hear from educators. We'll be sharing our email at the end of the webinar today. And if you have thoughts or suggestions or would like to talk about anything further, we would love to hear from you. We're really excited. Thank you all for coming. We're very much looking forward to introducing you to some of our creations today. So Cooper Hewitt, for those of you who may not have visited us before, is one of the 19 Smithsonian museums, and it's one of only 2 that are in New York City. Our museum, which is closed now, unfortunately, is on the Upper East Side in the former mansion of the industrialist Andrew Carnegie. And the thing that's really exciting about Cooper Hewitt is it's a museum that is dedicated to design. So we have almost 300,000 objects in our collection that are design related, and we are constantly presenting new exhibitions that are related to design and really exploring what is design. And we'd like to take a very broad view of this. Design can really be, it can be something that you purchase. It can be, sneakers are something that people always consider maybe that's design. Of course it is, but it can also be an experience. So it can be something like, I have my analog agenda here. This is an example of design. It helps me structure my days and my time, helps me get my work done. So design is a very broad discipline. And at Cooper Hewitt, we really are excited to present not only examples of historic design. This is an image of our Willie Smith fashion exhibition, which is on view now. Once the museum opens again, it will be on view. And we're very excited about that. But we also are working with designers and talking to them and learning from them about what the future might look like. Designers are really kind of future casters, and they're looking at things and thinking, how can we improve something? How can we address a problem through our design? And that's kind of what Tiffany and I are here to talk to you about today, because we've broken that down into a range of resources that we believe will be really fun and interesting for you to bring into the classroom or whatever your learning experience is.
All right, hi, yeah, thank you so much for kicking us off, Alexa. I'm Tiffany. I was originally brought into Cooper Hewitt to be an educator. I always said that the museum, the galleries are my classroom, and now I'm so lucky to have gotten to partner with Alexa in building so much of our online content, especially during the pandemic. Now, sort of the internet has become my classroom. So thank you so much for having me here with you today. I want to go ahead and launch us into a little bit of an activity to get our sort of hands and minds connected, make sure we're all on the same page when we're thinking about design. So if you have something to write with and write on, now would be a great time to pull that out. Otherwise, you can just kind of keep it in your head or even type it in the chat. So to get us started, I want you to think of an example of design in your home or your classroom. So if you're a teacher that goes into a classroom, maybe you could think about something that's an example of design that you or your students interact with. If you're teaching from your home, think about what's in your space. Think about what's in the room around you. Just an example of design. It can be anything. So for example, if I were going to choose this, I would choose my coffee mug. It's always with me. It's my favorite example of design for so many reasons, but it gets me through my day. And Alexa and Tess, I think you guys had a couple of examples of design on hand too.
Yes, I have, again, my Hobonichi agenda. This is my planner. It's a Japanese planner, so it's a learning experience all around, but it has these really great big open pages where you can make a drawing or really write a detailed agenda for your day. It's really flexible, and I love it.
I love these really sunny examples. When Tiffany originally talked about design, I actually thought about my home itself. I live in a studio apartment, very small, under 500 feet, but it makes really good use of the small amount of square footage I have. I really appreciate the windows I have that bring light into an otherwise very crowded space. Makes it feel not so small.
Yeah, that's a great example. Both of you gave really sort of helpful examples in thinking of the range of what design can be, right? Because if it was made, it was designed. Somebody made those decisions, like how many windows would be in your home or how many lines would be on the page of your planner. So think about something that was designed. It can be, something more conceptual, like a building or, a transportation system, or it can be something very tangible like a coffee mug or a planner. So once you have that, if you want to share it in the chat, we would love to hear from you. I'm going to keep moving because we've got a lot to share with you today.
I'm seeing some wonderful examples already in the chat.
Tess,
thank you all for sharing.
What are some of the, just out of curiosity, what are a couple
Yeah. So I'm seeing someone's designing a banquette for their new kitchen, thinking of the retention pond outside their school, thinking about a computer monitor too, how we're all tuning into this session today. Or perhaps you're on a mobile device, but that's an example of design too. Light fixtures as well.
Awesome. These are great examples. Okay, so keep those in your mind on your page. Whatever you need to do to remember this, because we're going to circle back to this activity at the end. But first, I want to talk a little bit about the design process, right? Because everything we listed, this cup, a planner, a countertop for a kitchen, these are all the end results. But one thing that we look at Cooper Hewitt is what happened all along the way to get you to that end result. So we call that the design process. And we're going to talk about the ways that the design process can be kind of applied across disciplines, but it really is something that helps you to understand the relationship to the various steps of the design process. And we've kind of broken that down into key mindsets. So at Cooper Hewitt, we talk about the design process in this sort of linear way where you define your problem, you empathize, so you think about who will be using the design that you're coming up with, or who will be interacting with the problem that you're solving. You brainstorm, so you come up with lots of ideas, lots of sort of ways that you might solve that problem. You prototype, so you model it out, you come up with kind of different models and examples of how that might look tangibly. You test those models, and then you launch it. So you see, it's almost like an iceberg. There's so much more under the surface even than there is at the final result. But we also know that this process does not always look like a straight line. Like, it's easy for us to kind of talk about it this way, but often it can look so many different ways depending on who you are and how you problem solve. So maybe it looks more like a spiral, right? Where you're hitting these kind of key points over and over and over until you kind of hone in on that solution. Or maybe it looks a little bit more like this, where it's a tangled web in the middle, and on the start and the end, maybe it looks a little bit more clean and understandable, but you might just have to work through a mess of ideas and problem solving to get to that end result. There's so many different ways to think about this. So we want you to remember that not everybody will go through this process the same way, but it is helpful to think about it as a process with some of these key points along the way. So I'm going to hand it over to Alexa now that we've talked about what we do at Cooper Hewitt, how we think about design and the design process. I'm going to let Alexa tell you how this sort of manifests in the content that we've created to share on our Smithsonian Learning Lab platform.
Great, thank you. For those of you who are not familiar with Learning Lab, as Tess mentioned earlier, it really aggregates all of the collections across Smithsonian, including the research units, all the museums. And so you can really search, and one thing that I've discovered is you can always find something that will support whatever you're working on. Wherever it is in the Smithsonian collection, there is something there for you. We have focused our Learning Lab profile and our collections around design, but really looking at how does design speak to other disciplines? How does design, for example, align with STEM and STEM learning? How might it speak to social studies, art history, some of those things? So we have been really looking at interpreting our collections and our exhibitions for educators through our Learning Lab profile page. And we have also worked really hard to align them. And we started this work before the pandemic, but it has become, of course, much more essential since lockdown. And we have really been working to create things specifically to support educators. And this is where, again, we would like to hear from you at the end, or send us an email how we can continue to support educators and if you have ideas. So we have on the screen now, this is our profile page. And you can see we have organized it into a number of different modules that we hope are helpful to you as educators. These speak to many different age groups, many different learning types. We do have a collection of 13 and growing Spanish language collections. So if some of you are teaching English as a second language, or you're teaching Spanish, or you have Spanish speaking students, these are resources that we're immensely proud of, and we are going to continue to expand. So that's there for you. We also have in the top right, educator resources. This includes the design field trip resources that Tiffany is going to talk about shortly, and other specific hands-on, in some cases hands-on, but very specific topically defined collections that are specifically to support educators in the classroom. So our hope is that you can grab and drop these into your lessons, whatever subject you're teaching, and we would love for you to take a look at those. One thing that we have really had so much fun exploring is the many relationships that design has with the STEM fields. And of course, we are not scientists, but we can recognize and understand how many of our objects are connected to STEM, whether it is looking at sustainability, water, looking at micro plastics in the water supply, or how can we support monarch butterfly populations through creating a habitat. There are many different STEM-aligned examples here that you can find that have proven to be very popular in our collections. We also have a series of what we call Design at Home collections, and these are paired with standalone videos that you can find on Cooper Hewitt's YouTube channel. We have a playlist specifically with Design at Home. And this is a series that was developed by Tiffany, and she has created many of these. But the idea here is to have very defined projects that you can work on at home, whether it is to make a zine or design a repeating pattern, or to create a nature observation journal that you can then bring back to the science classroom. We have tried as much as possible to keep the supplies that are needed for these hands-on activities as the kinds of things that you typically have around the house. It could even be recycling paper, things like that. So they're very low maintenance in terms of the kind of materials that you need to sort of take that stress off educators and parents. But that's another collection of design-related projects that we have been working on and have included in our Learning Lab profile page. We also have explorations of some of our exhibitions. These might be interesting to, we have the wonderful Contemporary Muslim Fashions exhibition, which is going to be on view again once we reopen in the near future, hopefully, and how posters work. The wonderful Willie Smith exhibit. All of these are designed to kind of give you an idea of what is on view in the galleries, and hopefully you can align those to your teaching as well. And then, we have some further kind of drilling down into women designers. We have some specific case studies. And the case studies are, again, mostly aligned very much with STEM topics. And one thing that we are working to do is to continue to reach out and explore the collections of some of our Smithsonian partners. And so we do, and we'll be looking at least one example of a Learning Lab collection that represents the kind of the thought and the collections of a number of different Smithsonian units. So that's another great advantage of Learning Lab.
If I could pop in for a moment, there have been a couple questions in the chat about where viewers can find this profile page. We've included a link to this page and all of the other pages we're sharing today in the description of this video. So whether you're joining us on YouTube or on Facebook, it's available there for you.
And should you be interested just in the Design at Home videos, if you go to Cooper Hewitt has a YouTube channel, and you'll see there's a playlist there called Design at Home, and you can find all of those videos there as well. The videos are included in the Learning Labs. So
that
again,
is a great point. That's a great point. And I was just going to say, I believe we also included a link directly to that playlist in the description of this collection as well, if you'd like to go straight there.
Now, I'm going to turn it over to Tiffany, who's going to take us through one of the really exciting developments that we have come up with during this lockdown moment.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alexa, for that sort of broad overview. That was really helpful. So I'm going to take us sort of zoom in a little bit, and we're now going to just take a second to look at some specific collections, just a small sample, that we hope will be helpful with you, whether you're working with students online or in a physical classroom. We hope that we have something that will be helpful for you. So one thing that we really believe at Cooper Hewitt is that design really is one of the few things that can transcend disciplines, that design is woven into the fabric of us as people. And so it really is, it is intrinsic to all of these different disciplines that you might teach or that your students might be interested in learning about. So the first thing that we want to share is a collection that speaks specifically to design in the arts. And this is our design field trips, which, like Alexa mentioned, is something that was born out of necessity when everyone went into their homes back in 2020, that we have developed this content so that it can exist in multiple different ways, so that hopefully it can also meet different needs, whether, again, you are teaching in person or whether you're teaching remotely. I know some people are on a hybrid and it's just insanity. So we tried to develop this in a way that it can meet the needs of as many teachers and students as possible. So Tess just brought us to the school group's web page, which I believe there will be links to this too. And this is where the information about our field trips lives. It's one of the places that this lives. So the two ways that our digital field trips manifest is in an online, like in-person virtual setting. So that's where your class is live over Zoom with one of our Cooper Hewitt educators. But we've also developed content that you can go at your own pace to. So here you can see, this is where you could register your class for one of the in-person field trips. And when I say in-person, I mean over Zoom. But that will be live, where an educator will take you through our curriculum, which again speaks directly to design in the arts and how those two are interconnected. But we've also developed content on our Smithsonian Learning Lab to support that field trip on either end of it. So to prepare your class for that experience, but also for your class to take it further after the fact. So you have something to sort of continue these conversations in your classroom. And then we've also developed content on Smithsonian Learning Lab that is a go at your own pace. So this doesn't have to require any sort of sign up. It doesn't require you to register. It doesn't require you to be on a Zoom link at any given time. They're self-guided so that hopefully you can sort of tailor it and fit it into your class's schedule. So we're going to go ahead and go over to the Learning Lab collection that is the extension of the live experience. So the live experience is all about identity and inclusion and community, looking at logo designs. So they explore all of the different parts of why logos do what they do, why they look how they look, how one might communicate something about identity with pictures and colors and words, and how you can mix those two to communicate different things, and how logos are a perfect example of that. So this Learning Lab collection is an extension of that activity, and it's considering how to take what they learned in their live field trip and apply it to a community setting. How do you then create something that represents many people, not just yourself? How do you think about the voices of other people and how to include those, and how might you represent those to create a more inclusive logo? So you can see we have images from our collection. We've also pulled from a couple of other Smithsonian museums, which is exciting. Some of these patches are from our other Smithsonian museums. And we have slides that are text that take you through the different components, right? So hopefully that will help to support you in guiding students through this. But remember, you can sort of modify this in whatever way you feel like serves your students best. So I think that this is a really great place to start with kind of a deep dive into our collections. And it really takes you through how the arts and design might have this relationship. So next, Alexa is going to take you through our Design and Democracy collection.
Thanks so much. Thank you, Tiffany. I do want to just reiterate that the virtual design field trip offerings are all free of charge. And one of the really, have been looking really hard to find silver linings in this difficult year with the pandemic. But one of the silver linings has been we are able to reach audiences. And I see some of you, many of you are not from New York City. You're tuning in from all around the world even. And we are able to continue to offer those resources free. So, we do encourage you to please check them out and share them with any educators that you think might be interested. If it's not suitable for your age group or whatever, we would love to continue to reach new audiences. So one of the, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, one of the types of learning labs that we've really been having fun constructing and iterating and producing are things that are speaking to important social or historical events, whether, something like an election, something, we've just had this federal election that was really consuming the national dialogue for most of the year. And so we have been reaching into our collections and thinking about how we might present some of these collections in a way that will facilitate dialogue around some of these really important things that are happening in real life around us all the time. So one of the ones that we published in October is called Design and Democracy. And this is really looking about how design, and in particular, in most of the examples that we're referencing in this collection, graphic design, posters, pamphlets, book design, it's very text-based, most of the examples here, but looking at how powerful design can be as a communicator of message. This is, a nonpartisan look at a whole range of different politicians' election posters and slogans. And it has been a really fun and really informative way for us to really think about, again, and Tess referenced this and Tiffany also earlier in the webinar, design really is all around us. And we may not think about a political poster as an example of design if we're driving past it on the street or, walking past it, it's in someone's window. We're kind of focusing on the message, but there is a real, the design of those resources is really, really important. And it can tell us a lot about a particular moment in time. So this has been a collection that has gotten a lot of attention recently. So we hope that means that it is useful to educators in talking about some of the processes of a democratic election and how design might play into that. I will also say that this particular collection does include resources from across the Smithsonian. So Museum of American History, I think the Anacostia Museum, there are a whole bunch of examples of things from other units, which is also, we love to be taking advantage of all of those different collections as well. So we are so excited for any opportunity to have a kind of a cross-Smithsonian Learning Lab collection.
I just wanted to chime in and say, sorry to interrupt, but there are just so many really rich resources here. And I really appreciate how throughout you build guidance for a student to help them look closely at these. And I wanted to reiterate too, for those of you who are joining us a little bit late, this is a collection on the Learning Lab, and which is a free site. But if you create an account, you can copy and adapt collections like this one. So say you see this and you think, hey, this is really awesome, but I need to bring in some resources from another institution close to me, maybe something I created. Maybe I want to simplify the collection a little bit. Maybe I want to bring more stuff in. You can make all of those changes.
Thank you, Tess. That's really important. Throughout our Learning Lab collections, you will see we do try and place prompts or opportunities for discussion. So we've tried to structure that in a way that is really open-ended, but will hopefully help you initiate dialogue with your students around the ideas that are present in the collections and the objects themselves. So thank you, Tess. That's really important.
So I'm excited to share our way that we've tried to kind of pair design with the STEM fields too, which I think is a really natural relationship between the two. And one of the ways that we have shown this off is through our new Design at Home initiative. So our Design at Home, or Design It Yourself, is how it appears on Learning Lab, and then Design at Home is kind of how it lives in YouTube. But basically the idea for these design it yourself collections are that they will be a hands-on learn and make activity, right? And the idea really, I think Alexa touched on this earlier, but the idea is to be able to use things that are in your home and to also be able to modify the activity based off of what you have available to you. We know that'll be different for everybody, especially while so many are currently in their homes. So this one is looking at designing a prototype for a user. And it's using some of these engineering ideas, some of these technology and science and math concepts, and pulling it in through the lens of design. So you can see it takes you through a couple of examples from our collection. And this is specifically thinking how to design for a specific user, right? So who might be using the designs you're making? What problem is it solving? We talk a lot about problem solving. So you can see before each example, we've come up with some questions to guide students through our content, right? The design aspect of it. Particularly when it comes to our collection. But we hope that you will also, I know Tess mentioned this, but that you can modify this because you're bringing the expertise of your field, that we're not experts in everything. Like Alexa mentioned earlier, like I'm not a scientist, but I do know design. And so it's really exciting to build some of these conversations. And we hope that you and your students can enter into it and bring your expertise as well. So not only we guide the students through a look at some examples with some questions and things to consider, but then we move into a design challenge. So in this design challenge, we have a suggested list. So you can see for this one, it was using recycled materials, design a way to help a specific user get from point A to point B over a difficult terrain. So we are trying to incorporate ideas like terrain, right? Which that can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. And it also can be a great teaching moment for what words like terrain means. We provide a suggested list of supplies that can be used, but you'll see that these are all supplies that could be interchanged. These were just ones that I happen to have at my house. And since I was going through this challenge myself, these are some of the ones that were top of mind. And then after we kind of go through the materials, what you'll need, sort of framing this challenge, we get into the nitty-gritty of what the challenge actually is. So Tess, I see that, yeah, you're going to so one of the important things that we want students to be thinking about in this challenge is designing for a specific user, so a person who might have specific needs, and also designing for a specific terrain. So we've given a suggestion of users and terrain, right, to kind of launch some ideas. So maybe you would choose a delivery person who would have a really different need than a parent and a child, or a musician carrying a piano. And then a terrain. So this is you can kind of mix and match and change what this design challenge looks like based off of changing the users and terrain. So let's say mine ended up being helping a delivery person move from point A to point B under the sea. So then my design challenge would be to design a way to deliver their packages under the sea. So we take the student through a modified version of sort of that design process that I shared with you earlier, empathizing, brainstorming, prototyping, and kind of give some guiding prompts about how to think about empathizing with your user. What might a delivery person need? What do they need to be successful? What do they need to be safe? And then brainstorming. How do you come up with ideas? What kinds of ideas are okay to come up with? The answer is all of the ideas are okay. You go wild. And then we get to prototyping, which that brings in this really hands-on part of the activity. You can see I developed a little prototype based off of some recycled materials that I have, some toilet paper rolls, and it's this little vehicle that can go over cobblestone was the idea. So it's just a quick and simple activity to think about sort of these design challenges, the things that designers think about. But it's also really kind of a lot of, engineering thinking about how are these things going to fit together? How am I going to solve this problem? And like I mentioned, this doesn't only exist in this sort of written visual. We also made a video. So there's a video of me kind of going through this content. We know there's all kinds of learners who intake information differently. And so hopefully a video like this might be helpful in guiding some students through this process. And this is, again, a really great time to reiterate that these collections are something that we hope that you will modify, that we hope that you will take and make your own, right? Maybe if you're a teacher that is looking at different biomes, right? Like maybe you'll have, instead of your terrain being cobblestone and under the sea, it'll be through a rainforest and over a desert. It could really speak to a lot of different areas of the sciences, of looking at different parts of the world, different needs of different people. So just remember, this is something that you can take and make your own, because while we are excited to share design, we know that there's a lot that we don't know. And so we hope that you will take your expertise and kind of make this come to life.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. I'd love to pop in for a second. We've gotten a couple questions in the chat. I think the first one I can answer, but the second one would be best directed to the two of you. And so the first question is from Joshua, and it's really about the types of resources that are available in the Learning Lab. Whether or not the resources are ours from the Smithsonian, or if we pull from other databases as well. That is a great question, Joshua, and I'm so glad you brought it up. So in the Learning Lab search, the search bar is in the upper left of every page. Using the search bar, you can search for resources from the Smithsonian and Learning Lab collections that any user has built. In the building of Learning Lab collections, you have the ability to bring in resources from anywhere. So if you have a resource at the Library of Congress that you love for teaching a certain subject, you can absolutely bring it in from their database. Likewise, if you have an image on your computer, a Word document, a PDF that you'd like to pull into your collection, you can do that as well. I should note that we also have many other museums creating content on the Learning Lab for folks to access. So as you search the Learning Lab and look at collections, you'll find things from museums outside of the Smithsonian. So worth exploring and checking out. The second question, I'll hold it up here for everybody, is about field trips and whether or not there's a minimum number of students for them.
Tiffany, I don't think there is a minimum, is there?
I believe there is, and from what I remember, and this is pulling from my memory from on-site, I'm so sorry that I don't have this answer on the tip of my tongue. I believe it's 15 students. However, I would really recommend that information will be on our registration site. I know that if you go through the registration, it will give you that answer really clearly. So I would really recommend, I saw that I believe the number of the individual asking the question was less than that, but check the registration and potentially even reach out. There's the info email as well, and one of my colleagues will get back to you and kind of help you work through that too, if maybe we could combine another smaller class. I don't know. I'm going off the cuff right now, but
we will do everything to work with you.
Yeah.
Please try.
All right, thank you both. Go ahead, Alexa.
Sure. I just wanted to jump back to Joshua's question about sources. And I do want to say, I think, it sort of depends on the unit, if they have particular requirements. We do absolutely include examples, not only from other Smithsonian museums and units, but we will bring in other examples from other collections as well. As an educator, I try and stay with open source and reliable education sources. Occasionally, there will be an opportunity to bring something in. I think in the prototyping video, there was the wonderful example of the Nike Pro hijab. I think we included a video from Nike in that about the athlete that inspired it, Ibtihaj Muhammad. But just for your information, I would say that we work really hard to make sure that there are diverse sources. We will never not include something from another educational institution if it needs to be there. So hopefully that will answer your question and reassure you that we take citations very seriously. Can I just jump back to the prototyping video really quickly? Yeah. Because I think this is a wonderful example, the collection. This is a really great example of thinking about how something that is very high tech doesn't have to be new. And so, for example, if we're looking at those wonderful snow goggles that were made in Alaska, I think hundreds and hundreds of years ago, this is a fantastic example of a really ingenious and just beautiful, simple piece of design that is aimed at solving really specific problem. Snow blindness, if you've ever experienced that in a very snowy region, you know how dangerous that can be and how important it is to have good sight. So this is an object that is not new. It's very old, in fact. However, it's showing us the kind of cutting edge, high tech thinking of the people who were making it and using it at the time. And that's something I think is really exciting about design. Sometimes we get a little bit caught up in the 3D printing or the new experiences, but historic design also is showing, really important technical or material advances in very high level thinking. And this collection is a really great example of that. So I just wanted to point out that very quickly. So I think we're going to talk about another example of a collection that this is one that is really exploring the kind of the power of the Smithsonian in terms of like the really deep well of resources that we have available to us and how we can look at something through a number of different lenses just within one single Learning Lab collection. So in response to the pandemic, we decided to make a collection around mask design, but looking at mask design through a number of different perspectives. For example, the kind of scientific medical perspective of, protecting yourself from contagion and pathogens. But also there are other aspects of masks that are really important culturally and artistically. And we have shown in this collection that you can really reach across time and space to find examples of masks. In this particular collection, we have masks as, the wonderful performance artist Lee Bowery, using them in a video from the 90s, but then we have examples of masks as a kind of a playful way to conceal identity, a kind of a masquerade or costume version. We have sports masks. A hockey mask was a really big, important invention for the evolution of hockey as a sport. It's still quite dangerous, of course, but the masks that were developed in the 1950s for hockey are incredibly important. So this particular collection was put together with people from other different units, and Tess was the sort of the anchor to this project. And we really tried to take a single type of item, a mask, and really apply as many different lenses as possible. So, and I think that again really shows the kind of the depth of the research that we can bring to these collections. And I can see this being something that you could use in any number of different subjects. So that is, and I think, I can't remember, it's 5 or 6 different units, I think, that we brought objects into for this particular one. Tess is showing you the kind of metadata or all the really core important information around these collections. So this will show you a description of the collection, but it will also, we take time to kind of go through and figure out what core learning standards this might apply to. So, and you can search that way too. So if you're new to Learning Lab, it's pretty easy. Like if you're looking for STEM resources for this particular age group, you can plug that in and you can call up collections from all across the Learning Lab. So we have included this in all of our collections, but other units have as well. So we've tried to make it convenient for educators to kind of grab whatever, analyze and grab whatever will be helpful to them for that particular student group or class or whatever.
Awesome. Thank you, Alexa. That's one of my favorite collections. I think it's so interesting, kind of the conversations that happen between all of the masks. So now that we've shown you just a smattering of our offerings of collections that sort of exhibit the different ways that you might use design and bring design into your classroom, I want us to circle back to that activity. And just because thinking about this kind of designing can be really empowering. So remember that object that you identified at the beginning of our time together. So for me, it was my mug, right? And I want you to redesign this object, thinking about the sort of process of design that we shared, redesign it to meet your needs, or maybe to meet the needs of your students, or both. That's also a challenge, to meet your need and your students' needs, depending on who it is that's interacting with the object that you chose. So you're going to do a little bit of brainstorming. While you do that, Alexa is going to share a little bit about just how design literacy can really enhance and enrich different curriculums. But as you brainstorm, go wild. Don't limit yourself. I'll show you if it's helpful. I did a little brainstorm of mine. You can see I have words and pictures. My idea is to have a little warmer on the bottom to keep it hot, to make it a little bit bigger, to make the handle bigger. So I was thinking about the things that I need, the things that that I might want to change to make this mug serve me better. Because ultimately design is about the people who interact with it. And thinking about problem solving in this way can be really empowering. So go ahead and work on redesigning. We would love to hear some of your ideas of how you might redesign your object to meet your needs better. And Alexa's going to talk a little bit more about what you can do with design literacy.
Thank you. Yeah, have fun with your brainstorming, and as Tiffany said, just go wild. You can edit, you can revise, you can. Nobody needs to see your brainstorming, and I think that's one of the really great aspects of talking about design literacy or bringing design into the classroom. It's really a way to kind of reframe. I'm somebody who I taught higher education for 15 years before I came to Cooper Hewitt. And I taught design students. And mostly what I found is they were really comfortable in the visual realm, but would become very kind of paralyzed with writing assignments. And I found that if you present a rewrite, a revision of a paper, whatever, as a kind of a redesign or another iteration, it kind of removed that, that thing that was in their path. And they sort of got over the perfectionism, and they found that they were able to look at their work with a little bit more objectivity and see, okay, yeah, that comment I agree with, or that I don't, and I'm going to really expand on this because I think this is really important. So I think that idea of iteration and refinement, and the kind of, in the design process, we kind of accept from the beginning that nothing is born perfect. Every idea has to be shaped, and oftentimes we get critique from other people. That really helps it. That could be your teacher or your friend or your parent or whatever. But that sort of the process of iteration is something that I think is really, really useful, especially with those students that get kind of tripped up by perfectionism or this thinking that, oh, I can't do it. It's not perfect in the way that I read something in a book and it's perfect. Well, of course, that book has been through many different hands and revised and revised and revised how many times. So that's a really important part of the design process. I think also, looking at problems how do you solve a problem? And that's where, Tiffany's going to, we're going to talk through that. You guys are working on that right now. Design is very much about collaboration. It's about understanding other people. If you're approaching a design problem, you need to understand who that user is, and that user isn't you. Excuse me. So that's another really important thing. We've seen a whole range of examples from our collection and the collection of the Smithsonian. So that design is touching all different disciplines, different time periods, solving different problems. So there's an incredible diversity of human creation thought that you can draw on in looking through design. And the value of taking a risk, getting over that perfectionism, not worrying, knowing that you'll have another chance to make it better, to revise it, to change something that is going to bother you, but just have that crazy idea and see what happens. And then also design is inherently interdisciplinary, post-disciplinary. It is not bound by some of those conventions of academic disciplines. And there is great freedom and fun to be found in that itself. So those are just some of the ways that we hope that you might think about including design, and hopefully some of our resources in your teaching. If you do, we'd love to hear about how it went. And yes, these are some of, some educators have shared examples of their student work that has relied on some of our Learning Lab resources. And this is an incredible couple examples from St. Thomas More, which is a private school in Washington, D.C. And they did a design it yourself, design eyewear Learning Lab project. And so you see the wonderful examples of these two students, the positivity glasses, about how you can kind of change your perspective by looking through your positivity glasses. We are so excited when you share these things with us on social media. We will definitely find them and save them and archive them. So we would love to know how you get along with our resources.
Yeah, and speaking of which, I know that we're almost at time, but we would love to hear any questions or thoughts. Also, if you feel like you would like to share anything that you would like to see from us, that we want to hear it all. So like I said, I know time is limited, but I'd love to open the floor.
I think that's a great idea, Tiffany. And while we wait for questions to come in, again, if you joined us about halfway through, you can send questions at any time using the chat box to the right of the video on YouTube or the comment box on Facebook. While we wait for questions, we got a couple great ideas about redesign in the chat that I would just love to share out.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Yeah, so someone who chimed in at the beginning talking about the retention pond beside their school said that they would redesign the retention pond to have a dual purpose that includes environmental ed learning, an environmental ed learning center for students to study ecosystems, which I love.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and then another person who talked about their earbud case earlier, thinking about adding a loop to the earbud case to attach it to a keyring, have it glow in the dark, be magnetic, and have the R and L brailled. So I see a bunch of really wonderful design solutions that range from kind of personalizing it to make it your own, but also more usable with the braille piece, the glow in the dark, and a loop. Though the glow in the dark is also personalizing it too. I would love to have a glow in the dark case just for fun.
Right, and I love that maybe the glow in the dark part is a little more complicated, but all of those are really simple design choices that can really like elevate and make that object more useful for you or for somebody who might need braille. That's awesome. Thank you.
The earbud, that's a wonderful example of something that you kind of think like, why doesn't it have that? It really, like, when you present it like that, oh my gosh, my 13-year-old has that, and we're constantly trying to find it. It would be so great if it had a place to fasten it to your keys or whatever. It's wonderful.
Absolutely.
Analysis.
Well, I see some thanks and positive comments in the chat. As we're wrapping up this hour, again, we're here for questions. If you have them, please enter them in the chat. I know kind of as we wait for questions to come in that we'd like to share our contact so that you can keep in touch with us past this session. So I'm going to share Cooper Hewitt's first. So you can get in touch with the Cooper Hewitt education team at ch edu@si.edu. And for the Learning Lab team, if you have Learning Lab specific questions, you can get in touch with me and the rest of my team at learninglab@si.edu.
Can I jump in? I see a really important question in the chat, and I'd like to address
Please.
it. Nina has asked a really important question about addressing the digital divide, and this is something that we have thought about. We're continuing to work through. We recognize that this is something that is a great need across the country right now. We do have some resources that are available, ironically, on our website. We have an activity book that can be printed out. We do have printed copies that we make available sometimes. So if you're interested in getting some of those, I don't know if we have any at the moment, but please reach out to us by email and we can see if we can find some paper copies. But the idea of the activity book is to have something that does not rely on technology in any way. You just need a writing instrument and everything else is there. It's sort of like drawing and games and meant to really support students who don't have access to reliable internet. We also are working, hopefully we will have some programming this summer that with a nonprofit partner that will be available through TV. I can't say more than that right now because it's still in development, but television is, we have seen that is something that people often have, even if they don't have access to reliable internet. But absolutely, the digital divide is a major, major learning problem to be addressed. And we have seen as we have all leaned into digital, and we've been talking to you about our digital resources today, as much as we do that, we need to put as much energy into the digital divide as well. So I just want to acknowledge that really important question and thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, and Nina, please go ahead first, Tiffany, and then I'll chime in.
Yeah, I was just gonna piggyback on what Alexa was saying. We're actively working on expanded solutions or trying to come up with some kind of way to continue to speak to this audience across the digital divide. And so we are always hungry for information of what those students need, right? Because there's some things that I can try and guess and anticipate, but even just by nature of the fact that I am here with you all in this program shows that I have reliable internet, and I don't know all of the needs and the gaps that exist. So please, if you think of something that students that you know who are on the side of the digital divide that they don't have access to internet and to websites, let us know. Like, we would love to hear if there are ways that you feel like we could be reaching these students more.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. And I'd love to chime in too to Nina's excellent question. So on the Learning Lab side of things, we're working on some technical improvements, especially over the next few months, to address some of the lag issues that exist, especially with weaker broadband connections. But I mean, you saw it here today. I had some loading issues too. We have areas to improve. And so we're really taking a focus this year to make the Learning Lab more accessible on a variety of internet connections. We're also working too to build some new tools to help kind of cross that digital divide and make resources that are available on the Learning Lab more easily accessible in an offline environment. So one of the tools that we're launching in the next few months is a tool to print out the entirety of a Learning Lab collection, the images of resources, the information, the annotations or kind of interactivity that's included with them. When you print, you decide what's printed. So if you don't want all of that stuff, you don't need to have it, but you have the ability to print it there for you. I know many educators across the Smithsonian, not just at the Cooper Hewitt, but all of our other museums and centers too, are really concerned about this. So I've seen an uptick in collections this year that are made to be used offline. The idea is to give the resources to an educator who can kind of make them available offline for a student. But of course, like, we have so many areas to improve. And so like Alexa and Tiffany, we would also love to hear from you about ways, because you know your students best and you know the challenges that exist for them, how we can continue to improve the platform to make our resources available offline as well. So I think it looks like we're about 5 minutes after time, and I don't want to keep you all here too much longer, but I just wanted to mention again, if you want to watch this session again, if you want to send it to a friend, you can. As soon as the session ends, the archive is going to be available at the same link you're watching it at now. And again, all of the resources that we shared today are available in the description of the video. So links to the Cooper Hewitt's school programs page where you can find their digital field trips, a link to their Learning Lab profile page where you can find all of their collections. Alongside all of the collections we shared today, those are available there for you. So with that, any final words, Alexa and Tiffany?
Just really excited to continue to partner with educators. Thank you so much for coming today with your time and your great questions and comments, and we hope to keep this conversation going.
Yes, thank you so much for having us. It's been wonderful to be here with you today.
Yeah, thank you again, everybody, for all the questions and ideas you brought, and I'm looking forward to connecting again soon. Have a good evening or day wherever you are.
Thank you.